So this would be tip number 3 in our Secrets of the Barista series. Our purpose with these videos is to let people know how we professionals go about doing things in the industry, and in turn we educate our customers so that they can get the very best out of their coffee at home. So today we're going to talk about the grind, and I know everyone wants to know how to make the best espresso, but before we can do that we have to talk about the grind. It's really, really important. Now, I've said it before, I'll say it over and over again. Espresso is a combination of correctly roasted coffee beans, ground to the right size, extracted with water at the right temperature for the correct length of time under the right pressure. It's just those elements, that's all it is. So the grind is critical for a good shot of coffee. Get the grind wrong and it's all over. So when we're grinding, there's 2 elements to a correct grind. The first is the size of the granule, and the second is how consistent and clean are those granules. So we'll talk about size first. Now look, under a microscope, if you looked at ground coffee, it's not ground at all, it looks like it's sliced. They actually look like sugar crystals. So imagine if those crystals were huge. It would be really, really easy for water to get its way through the crystals and out, and that would be a very fast extraction. Now on the other hand, imagine that they were really, really small, microscopic. It would be much, much harder for water under pressure to find its way through all those ground beans. And this is the principle behind grinding coffee and the correct grind. This is what you need to know when you're aiming for your 26 to 28 second shot. Now, assuming that you are tamping correctly, and we've spoken about tamping before, you adjust the coarseness of the grind to achieve the 26 to 28 second shot time. To make that crystal clear, what I'm saying is if the coffee takes too long to extract, you will have to coarsen up the grind. If it's happening too soon, then you will have to make the grind finer. Now, the tricky part is, especially with people at home, every grinder is a little bit different in the way that they're set up to adjust. So people will have to look at their own grinder and work out what do they have to do to make it coarser or finer, and it's normally written on there somewhere, so you can work that out for yourself. Now the other thing we need to talk about is the grind needs to be clean and consistent. Now I once did an experiment and the results absolutely amazed me. I ground some coffee with a dodgy old grinder that had worn out burrs, and I ground some coffee with a brand new grinder. I set them up side by side in a 2-group machine, and I ran them into a shot glass, one after the other. And like I said, the results amazed me. The dodgy grinder gave me a crema of about 2 millimetres, while the good grinder gave me a full shot of crema. And it was just chalk and cheese. And that's why in the espresso bars we grind fresh for every shot of coffee, and we always service our grinders so they've got nice sharp burrs. Now, like I said before, a good grinder will slice your coffee beans into a uniform, clean consistency, rather like a sugar crystal. It won't be dusty and muddy like a worn out grinder would do. So it's the consistency and extra surface area of well ground coffee beans that give a superior result. So often people say to me, I've got $250 to spend, which coffee machine should I buy? My answer to that is don't buy a coffee machine at all. For that amount of money, your coffee machine is going to break. You're better off spending that sort of money on a good grinder with good burrs and use a stovetop to make your espresso. The results will be far, far better. Okay, that's all well and good, but you've got to be aware of a few variables, the most major of which is humidity. Humidity can really affect your grind, and it's okay if you're in a controlled environment with air conditioning, it won't affect you so much. But if you're exposed to the elements, it can be massive, massive changes. The best example I can give you is one day at one of our stores we're quite exposed, and a storm came over. Our shots of coffee were just running perfectly. Within 15 or 20 minutes, we went from that to a drip to virtually no coffee at all coming out of the coffee machine. And it was because the moisture in the air had been absorbed by the ground coffee and made it so gluggy that water couldn't pass through it. So when I hear people say don't adjust the grinder, it really frustrates me, because you should be adjusting the grinder constantly, hunting down the best shot possible. So during the course of a day, we'll adjust our grinder on many occasions. And what we do is, if the coffee is running too fast, we want to slow things down. So we fine up the grind. If the coffee is running too slow, we need to coarsen the grind. And it's just a part of our daily routine. So, the bottom line, if you own a good grinder, you will always have great coffee, because the freshness is always locked in the bean. The best coffee machine in the world is absolutely useless without freshly ground, correctly ground coffee. Follow the instructions, practice, and you'll reap the rewards. I'm Rob, your coffee shop coach. Look out for more tips coming your way.